I never expected a mysterious maid to unlock my heart. Could this be love against all odds? The day everything fell apart for me was a tempest of emotions. I remember the rain pounding against the window, heavy and relentless, echoing the chaos in my heart. I was drowning in loss. I hadn't felt the warmth of a smile in weeks. My life felt flipped upside down, and I was exhausted from trying to hold it all together. Then she appeared. At first, it was just a glimpse, a shadow by the hallway, a fleeting moment that made my heart race. She was unlike anyone I'd ever met. Her dark hair cascaded like a waterfall down her back, and her eyes sparkled with secrets that pulled at something deep within me. I could hardly breathe. Who was she? Just a maid? Or something more? As I tried to shake the sadness off, I found her cleaning the living room, her movements fluid and graceful, almost hypnotic. The scent of lavender lingered in the air, mingling with the stale reminders of my sorrow. It felt surreal, like stepping into a dream. I followed her with intent, my pulse quickening, a mix of curiosity and something I dared not name. My family had always kept help around the house. New faces came and went, but she seemed different. There was an air of mystery surrounding her. Whenever she looked up, I felt as if she were seeing right into my soul. What had brought her to my doorstep? What stories lay hidden behind her shy smiles and the way she sometimes froze, as if lost in another world? People in the neighborhood began to talk. Whispers in the grocery store, sideways glances at the park. That maid, she's special. They sensed the electricity, the strange connection that crackled between us. I knew it was wrong to think like that. I was fragile, a wreck of emotions, and she was a maid. Flashes of guilt shot through me, weaving through the budding hope as I tried to push it aside, but every day, as the sun filtered through the dust motes in the afternoon light, her presence became my escape. I would watch her, mesmerized, wiping away the dust as if it were a veil, revealing a brighter world. She hummed softly, a tune that wrapped around me like a comforting blanket, healing the pieces of me that felt shattered. Each moment with her felt like stepping closer to something I couldn't define. And then came the thunder. The day the truth struck me. A knock, sharp and insistent, echoed through the house. My heart thundered in my chest as I opened the door, only to find a figure obscured in shadows, eyes glaring with intensity. "You need to know who she really is," the voice hissed, low and urgent. I stood frozen, the world around me fading to a whisper. Was this the moment everything changed? Who was the mysterious maid that had unraveled my heart? And what secrets lay hidden beneath her surface? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood at the threshold, my heart racing, the weight of uncertainty settling on my shoulders like a heavy cloak. The intruder's gaze was piercing, filled with an urgency that left me breathless. "Who are you?" I managed to sputter, trying to piece together the fragments of this chaotic moment. The door remained ajar, splitting my world in two. On one side, the muddled confusion of my existence. On the other, the whispered promise of something Nawa bond with her. "Just someone who knows," the figure replied, their voice sharp, cutting through my fog of emotions. "You think you're falling for her, but the reality is darker than you can imagine." With that cryptic warning, they backed away, leaving me hanging in the echoing silence. I slammed the door shut, breath hitching in my throat, mind racing with the implications. As I paced the empty hall, thoughts spiraled in a dizzying dance. Darker than I can imagine. What kind of life did she lead outside these walls? Was she merely a maid or a carrier of secrets thick enough to suffocate me? Each unanswered question clawed at my conscience, propelling me deeper into a turmoil that mirrored the storm raging outside. Just then, the door swung open again, and she stepped into view, her silhouette haloed by the fading sunlight. I froze, her presence grounding me, yet shrouded in shadows born from the stranger's words. Is everything all right? She asked, her eyes wide and concerned, the softness of her voice a balm to my jagged nerves. I wanted nothing more than to reach out, to draw her close and shield her from whatever darkness had been woven into her story. But I hesitated, the tension of the moment too thick to cut through as, of course, I lied, swallowing the knot forming in my throat. I just thought I heard something. She nodded slowly, her expression shifting to understanding, but I caught the glimmer of something deeper in understanding that echoed the joy and sorrow within me. She turned back to her duties, dusting the frames hanging on the wall, but I could feel the space between us stretch taut with unspoken words. Days passed, a whirlwind of half-hearted smiles and heavy silences. Outside, the world continued to thrive. Children played in the sun, neighbors exchanged pleasantries, but inside our home, I felt the weight of secrets suffocating my resolve. The nagging voice from the door loomed large in my mind, know who she really is. It was on one particularly quiet evening, an unusually heavy stillness wrapped around the house, that the flicker of hope reappeared. I found her in the kitchen, the light casting soft shadows over her features as she meticulously chopped fresh herbs for dinner. It was a simple act, yet she infused it with grace. The soothing scent of rosemary filled the air, pulling me closer. Is it always this quiet here? I asked, watching her with a mix of admiration and longing, hoping to breach the walls she had unconsciously built around herself. Sometimes, she smiled softly, glancing up at me. But it's also a time for reflection. A moment to find peace in the chaos. Her words hung in the air, resonating with me, stirring something that felt dangerously close to longing. Do you ever feel trapped in that stillness? I ventured, searching her gaze for the truth behind those enigmatic eyes. Sometimes, she whispered again, vulnerability weaving through her tone. But every now and then, there's a flicker of light that breaks through the darkness. A reminder that there's beauty to be found even in the shadows. The weight of her admission paused the air between us, allowing the tender moment to expand. I stepped closer, emboldened by the unexpected kindness flooding my heart. What if I told you I see that light in you? She blinked, surprise flashing across her face before it softened into a smile that sent ripples of warmth through my chest. In that fleeting connection, I dared to hope Argyreina, fragile bloom breaking free from frost, but abruptly, the doorbell rang again, this time with an urgency that cut through our moment. We shared a look, a fleeting panic in her expression. Before she composed herself. "I'll get it," she said, but I could tell something inside her had shifted. I nodded, swallowing the sudden dread twisting in my stomach as she walked away. Alone, I felt the quiet collapse back, a foreboding magnetism tugging at my chest. Who could be at the door now? And why did an icy chill sweep through the house, mirroring the unease gnawing at my heart? When she returned, the lightness from our moment had dimmed. Her eyes, instead of sparkling, were filled with something urgent and unreadable. She started, but then stopped short, glancing behind her toward the door as if it were a portal to all that remained unspoken. In that instant, I knew. The shadows in her past were inching closer, and the door now stood ajar. The secrets that followed could expose everything. I sprinted to her side, searching for answers in her gaze. What lay on the other side, in the world she kept hidden, dark and looming? Would it threaten the light we had just begun to kindle between us? Who was it? I whispered, the question hovering like a ghost between us. And as she opened her mouth to respond, dread twisted in my stomach. The answer would change everything, and in that moment, all I could do was hold my breath, waiting for her revelation to shatter our fragile connection. The tension in the air was palpable, thicker than the silence that filled the room as she stood frozen at the threshold, grappling with whatever tumult was brewing just beyond our walls. I could sense her internal struggle, the way her fingers clenched and released as if she were battling an invisible foe. "It's someone I thought I had left behind," she finally murmured, her voice faltering under the weight of her revelation. My heart sank as I watched the color drain from her complexion, leaving her skin pale and fragile. Who was this specter from her past? Who? I urged, feeling an urgency swell within me, desperate to grasp at the strands of her fear. What do they want? She took a step back, her eyes casting down, avoiding my gaze as if my inquiry might plunge us both deeper into a darkness we weren't ready to face. It's complicated. I thought I could escape it, but her voice trailed off, leaving a chasm of uncertainty between us. I reached out, yearning to bridge that gap. You don't have to face this alone. Whatever it is, we can figure it out together. For a moment, she looked as though she might offer up the trust one longed for. But the flicker of hope dimmed in her eyes, and she took another step back, creating an invisible barrier that left me feeling helpless. I can't bring you into this. You deserve more than the shadows I've been running from. Maybe we could fight the shadows together, I countered, the determination rising in my voice. Stop hiding from it. You don't have to carry that burden alone anymore. That seemed to spark a flicker of defiance in her, and she looked up, meeting my gaze with a fire that dug deep into my heart. You don't understand, she said, her voice cracking at the edges. Those shadows can swallow everything. They wreak havoc. I've seen it. I've lived it. With every revelation, my pulse quickened. I wanted to know everything about her, to wrap my mind around the beautiful, yet haunted soul before me. What did you run from? I pressed, unwilling to let her retreat into the silence that had served as her shield for far too long. Suddenly, her face contorted, and her voice trembled as she spoke the words that would rip through the fragile fabric of our moment. Someone I thought I could escape is back, someone who knows me all too well. Someone who might not let me go again. The electric charge of fear coursed through me, and a cold knot formed in the pit of my stomach. What do you mean? Are you in danger? I stood closer, instinctively placing myself between her and the door, as if somehow I could shield her from whatever darkness loomed large. She shook her head, her expression a mix of anguish and regret. Not just me. It's not just my life at stake. It's everything I've built. Everything I love. Her voice cracked, and I caught the shimmer of tears welling in her eyes. I had yearned to know her, to love her in the light, but now I was confronted with the shadows that could eclipse everything. Please, I urged, my heart beating fiercely in my chest, you have to tell me what this is about. Please. In that instant, the world outside faded, and all that mattered was her. The thief of silence claimed time as her struggle drew on, moments stretching into an eternity. When she finally spoke again, it was barely above a whisper. If they find out, they'll come for you, too. Fear gripped me anew, intertwining with the raw emotion pulsating in my chest. Who? I pressed, feeling as if 1,000 shards of truth could explode at any moment. What do they want with you? But before she could respond, the door swung open once more, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow, a man whose gaze pierced through the dim light of the hall. The unmistakable chill that ran down my spine was undeniable. This was not a stranger, this was the darkness personified, the reminder of all that she had sought to escape. There you are, the man said with an unsettling smirk, surveying both of us with a possessive glint in his eyes. I've come to collect what's rightfully mine. I felt her tense beside me, her breath caught somewhere between dread and disbelief. I had crossed the threshold from confusion into a haunting reality, and the fragile light we had begun to kindle flickered dangerously close to being snuffed out. The moment of our connection shattered, leaving nothing but the raw edges of our fears on display. Stay away from her, I warned, my heart racing as I stood between them. Why, does her freedom mean so much to you? He taunted, all the while stealing glances at the woman beside me, whose eyes reflected brokenness, a silent cry wrapped in the guise of a fear that threatened to consume us both. Reality cracked open around me as I braced for whatever revelation that moment would bring, everything I had hoped to build with her at stake, and the raw truth of our hearts hanging in the balance. I was ready to fight, to hold on to whatever flickers of hope remained, but the impending storm was poised to swallow us whole. Would I have the strength to face the darkness creeping in, or would I lose her before ever truly knowing her? The tension in the air gave way to a haunting stillness, each breath weighted with unspoken fears. I stood firm, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I faced the man who had barged into our fragile moment, the embodiment of the shadows she had fled. Stay away from her, I repeated, my voice steadier than the trepidation roiling within. My eyes flickered to her, desperate for a sign of reassurance, but her gaze was glued to the figure in front of us, eyes wide with a mixture of recognition and dread. Come now, he said, stepping forward with an unsettling confidence that sent shivers down my spine. We both know she can't resist forever. The past is a heavy chain, and it has a way of binding those who try to escape. At that moment, I could see the shadows clawing at her, trying to ensnare her once again in their tight grip. But I couldn't let that happen. Not now, Not after all we had just begun to uncover between us. Who are you? I demanded, trying to anchor my resolve against the growing tide of fear. What do you want with her? The man chuckled softly, a sound devoid of warmth. I am simply here to remind her of the commitments she has tried to forsake. Loyalties. Obligations. She cannot simply erase them. His words danced in the air, laden with implications that taunted the edges of comprehension. I turned to her, the urgency pulling at my chest. What does he mean? What commitments? What do you owe him? I owe him nothing, she cried out, the defiance igniting her voice. But even I could hear the uncertainty lacing her words, the cracks of her confidence. I thought I could leave that life behind, only to have it come rushing back, the man added smugly, his eyes gleaming with triumph. He was too close to her, and I could sense her retreat, her fear threatening to unravel everything we had begun to stitch together. I took a step forward, grounding us in this moment. You're not alone in this, not anymore. We can face whatever it is together. Together. The man scoffed, dismissing our connection with a wave of his hand. Does he even know what he's stepping into? The life you've led, the darkness that follows. Hell, regret this decision. There it was again, the doubt that slipped silently between us, grasping at the burgeoning hope I thought we had started to solidify. No, I asserted, my heart pounding. She deserves a chance to be free, to live without fear. And I refuse to let you take that away from her. Ah, but she was never really free, was she? The man turned towards her, his voice a silken whisper laden with menace. And the weight of your past is an anchor she cannot ignore. Remember the consequences of discord, my dear. They linger like shadows long after the sun has set. As the man spoke, I saw tears welling in her eyes, and in that moment, the anguish on her face cut through me like a knife. I couldn't let him win. I reached for her hand, desperate to pull her back to the light, but she hesitated, her fingers trembling slightly beneath my grasp. Please, I whispered urgently, my voice trembling. Don't let him cloud your heart with those words. You have fought too hard to escape this. But before she could respond, the door creaked open behind us, and a figure entered the MAID, her expression one of determined calm amid the chaos unfolding. She couldn't see the man's face, only the fear radiating from the woman I loved. Leave, now, the MAID commanded, her voice steady and unwavering. I won't allow you to hurt them. The man turned to her, taken aback as if startled by her sudden intervention. And who are you to dictate my actions? I am someone who believes in the power of choices, she replied firmly, taking a step closer, her stance a shield for us both. You don't know what she's capable of. You may have once held power over her, but she has found strength in herself. You can't take that away. A flicker of surprise crossed the man's face, momentarily disrupting his confidence. But it quickly morphed into a sinister smile, showing just enough of his teeth to illustrate the danger he posed. How noble of you. But standing against me is a losing battle. As tension hung heavy in the air, my heart raced, the fear of losing her crashing over me like an unforgiving tide. The MAID's stance filled me with a flicker of hope, but I knew deep down that this was just a skirmish in a much larger war. What will you do? I whispered to her urgently, my eyes locked onto hers, pleading for clarity as the man continued to loom like a specter threatening to pull her back into the abyss. She took a deep breath, a momentary stillness passing between us as we grappled with the reality that lay before us. I don't know, she murmured, her voice so fragile in that moment. But I won't go back without a fight. The man laughed bitterly, a sound that seemed to echo off the walls of our entwined fates. A fight? You think you can win against what you've tried to forget? No, my dear. This is merely the beginning. Just then, the lights in the hallway flickered ominously before going completely dark, an inky blackness swallowing us whole. Heart pounding, panic igniting within me, I held her hand tighter, determined to stand my ground as the unseen danger encircled us. In the darkness, I could feel her anxiety pulsate beside me, and I wanted to tell her that together we could face anything. But as the silence settled around us, the whispers of memories long buried echoed back, leaving us on a precipice of uncertainty as we faced the shadows of our own making. Then a voice cut through the darkness, a low growl close enough to send chills down my spine. You haven't heard the last of me, Just like that, the man slipped away into the abyss, leaving behind a looming threat hovering over our fragile hope. Fear tightened its grip once more, holding us in a space where the darkness whispered promises of despair. And as we stood there, hearts racing against the encroaching night, I realized that this battle had only just begun and that the silent war within herself was far from over. The darkness whispered secrets we weren't ready to confront. A moment felt like an eternity, cloaked in uncertainty, each beat of my heart echoing the anxiety thrumming in the air. I squeezed her hand tighter, an anchor in the tempest, but even as I clung to her, I felt the fissures of doubt widening between us like a rift threatening to swallow us whole. "Hold on to me," I urged softly. "No matter what shadows come, we'll navigate them together." Her eyes found mine, and in that moment, we forged a connection akin to a lifeline, but as her confidence flickered, I feared that it might not be enough. The memory of the man's menacing laughter hung between us like a specter, looming and chilling. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the chaos around us. The maid stood resolutely at the threshold, an unexpected beacon amidst the turmoil. "He's gone for now, but you both need to stay vigilant," she warned, a hint of worry clouding her expression. "He won't stop. This isn't over. Why is he doing this? What does he want from her?" I asked, desperation creeping into each syllable. The maid took a few cautious steps towards us, her demeanor shifting from commanding to compassionate, as if she saw the weight we both carried. "What he wants is a legacy," she replied slowly, her voice steady. "A legacy built on fear and control. What he has over her is not simply a past, it's a bond he believes you cannot break." "You're fighting against a tide that runs deep, but we have to fight," she interjected, her voice filled with a fierce resolve that seemed momentarily to dispel the shadows. "I refuse to be a pawn in his game." The maid nodded, her features softening. "Then you must prepare yourselves. There are allies who can help us, but you must be willing to confront the truth of her past. It will not be easy." "What do you mean, allies?" I asked, my mind racing at the thought of enlisting others. Was this a battle we could truly summon others to fight alongside us? "There are those who believe in her strength, who have seen the shackles he placed on her," the maid explained. "But she must show them her courage. Only then can we hope to dismantle the hold he has over her heart." The warmth in her composure encouraged me, but I could see the weight of the world sit heavy on my beloved the moment those words left the maid's mouth. Tears brimmed in her eyes again, and I felt helpless, wishing I could wipe them away and replace them with the promise of safety and love. "How can we show them when I barely believe in my strength?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "You are stronger than you know," I reminded her fiercely. "Don't let his lies take that from you. You've made it this far, let that be a testament to who you are now." At I end that moment, the maid stepped forward, placing her hand gently on my beloved's shoulder. "You've already begun your transformation. This is just a chapter in your story, not the end of it. We can find our way through this darkness together." The flicker of hope reignited in her eyes as the words settled like warm embers against the chill. Yet, beneath that glimmer, I sensed a familiar fear, the haunting belief that the path ahead might lead us astray once more. "Tell us what to do," she said, gathering the remnants of her courage like a shield. "I won't run again." The maid smiled softly, yet the gravity of the impending uncertainty loomed again like a dark cloud. "We gather the others, the few who still believe in her. But it must be done in secrecy. He has ears everywhere." As we formulated a tentative plan, urgency infused every word. We would reach out to those who were left, friends turned foes and familiar faces transformed by fear. As the maid explained the gathering, it felt as if we were forging an army, each name slipping from her lips a promise that we wouldn't face the darkness alone. But as excitement mingled with trepidation, a newer, more poignant fear began unfurling within me, the undeniable connection she still held with her past. It hung above us like a thin string ready to snap. Would they reject her, push her back into the shadows? Distracted by my spiraling thoughts, I missed the cautious look exchanged between the maid and her. It was fleeting, just a whisper of concern, but it didn't escape me. "Are you sure we can trust them?" I asked, uncertainty flooding my voice as the remnants of my earlier determination began to fade. "What if he finds out? What if it puts you in danger?" The maid locked her gaze onto mine, unwavering. "Risk is part of this journey. Besides, the greater danger lies not in the allies we might gather, But in the isolation that he wishes to impose on you. It held weight, and I knew it. Even against my instincts, I had seen her struggles, the silent battles she waged with every memory. It pained me to think he could fracture her hope once again, striking at the heart of everything we were building. As we made our plans, time pressed on like a relentless tide, each tick of the clock breathing urgency into our mission. And as we pieced together our approach, something shifted in the air, an unsettling sense of impending doom. Just then, the door suddenly swung wide open, startling us. I turned, heart in my throat, and there stood a figure I never expected, an old acquaintance from her past, with eyes that glimmered with knowing and mischief. "I hear you're looking for allies," the newcomer chimed, a smile creeping across his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes, and just like that, I felt the ground shift beneath me once more, as the specter of her past wove its way back into our tangled lives. The figure in the doorway, silhouetted by the dim hallway light, felt like a ghost unearthed in the chambers of her past. A chill swept through me as recognition flickered in my beloved's gaze. It was a mix of gratitude and trepidation, an echo of joy intertwined with something darker, perhaps a fear of what this ancient acquaintance might dredge up. "Lucas," she managed, voice trembling, her grip on my hand tightening instinctively. "I thought you could use some help," he said, stepping further inside, the door creaking shut behind him with a purpose that reverberated throughout the room. His smile carried an air of familiarity that both comforted and unsettled me, as if the past wrapped around him like a cloak, ready to swallow her whole again. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice infused with a strength I didn't recognize. "After everything, after you disappeared, why would you show up now?" "I've heard about what's been happening," Lucas replied, his tone shifting from casual to serious. "I want to help. You don't have to face him alone. You've got allies, know, if you choose to trust them." Trust. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. I could feel the specter of doubt creeping in, swirling around the dim lighting as tension filled the air. Could we really trust anyone who had drifted so easily from her life before? "I know what he can do," Lucas continued, casting a glance between us. "I saw you endure so much, and I should have been there. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I'm here to make things right." Beneath his confession lay the remnants of old fear struggles embedded deep within her heart. I could see it ripple across her expression, the way her eyes flickered as memories crashed like waves, threatening to drown her spirit. It was as if every word he spoke pulled her back towards the darkness she'd fought so hard to escape. "I don't want to relive the past," she whispered, her voice barely a flutter. "I'm trying to move on. I'm trying to find my courage." "Courage comes from facing our demons," he replied, his eyes piercing, as though he held pieces of her that she couldn't find herself. "You have every right to be frightened, but you also have every reason to stand and fight. We can work together." The maid, who had remained a quiet witness, stepped forward, sensing the urgency brimming beneath the surface. "Hes right. But remember, the path to reclaiming your life is fraught with risks. Each ally may carry shadows of their own." "What do you mean?" I asked, swallowing hard, feeling the weight of each hidden potential threat. "The past may come knocking in ways you can't anticipate. Each person you gather may stir up memories both sweet and painful," the maid explained. "You have to be ready for that, ready to sift through the ashes where old alliances crumble and new ones ignite." "I don't care about that, I care about you." I found myself speaking, the urgency spilling from me. "Are you sure about involving him? Can we trust him to protect you?" "Trust is not a commodity that should be exchanged lightly," the maid warned gravely, her eyes narrowing into a solemn plea. "But perhaps it's worth examining a risk to resurrect the strength buried beneath her fear." She nodded slowly, her heart visibly wrestling beneath the weight of decisions. Uncertainty churned within me, threatening to unearth my own fears of losing her again. But deep down, I saw the smoldering ember of hope flicker to life within her, igniting the path to resilience. Perhaps we could use Lucas, could draw upon whoever was left to build the strength we needed. But what if they turn out to be more dangerous than he is? I pressed, desperate to ground her in caution. "Life is a gamble," Lucas replied, pain flickering in the depths of his voice. "We took big risks before, and they led us to where we are now. And you," he addressed her directly, "your spirit deserves to be freed. This time, you won't be alone." A silence sat heavy between us, each heartbeat resonating with uncertainty. But slowly, I saw my beloved begin to breathe deeper, her resolve creeping back into focus, knitting together the threads of courage she had thought lost. You're right. If I want to take hold of my future, I need to confront the shadows, all of them. Yet, as she spoke those bold words, a flash of something heavy dashed across Lucas, a fleeting shadow in his eyes that hinted at secrets unspoken. The connection to the past felt fraught with the electric charge of unsaid truths, and I suddenly felt like we were standing on a cliff's edge, each gust of wind threatening to propel us into an abyss. Before I could voice my thoughts, Lucas stepped forward. "I'll help you. No matter what has done or how he tries to twist your story, I can help uncover truths you don't even remember." "Stop," I interjected, holding on to her hand as if anchoring her to me during the turmoil. "We need to decide carefully. Are we prepared for what might come if we indulge this?" "Yes," she replied, firm resolve blossoming in her smile, but her eyes revealed the flicker of apprehension. "I want to confront everything, but that was the crux, wasn't it? Were we truly prepared to face the repercussions of the past?" Every ounce of hope I felt transitioned to an undercurrent of anxious anticipation, the questions thrumming heavily on the surface, waiting to sweep us under. And as we stood there, united but uncertain, knowing that paths untrodden would lead us to new depths or back into the abyss, looming shadows from the doorway whispered inner fears. "What if he comes for you again?" I said, battling the turmoil tightening like a vice around my heart. "What if he discovers we're gathering allies?" A dark storm loomed in her expression, fear crackling like electricity in the air. "Then it will be a fight worth having." Yet suddenly, Lucas' eyes widened, his intensity sharpening. "He knows." The air changed. The room morphed from a sanctuary into a battlefield, any ounce of hope slipping further away. The past had returned like a tempest, the storm about to unleash its fury upon us once more, and the question remained, could we withstand its unrelenting force? The atmosphere in the room shifted, the hair on the back of my neck prickling with an unsettling familiarity. Lucas' urgent revelation hung overhead like a dark cloud, threatening to rain chaos upon us. It was a weight I had not anticipated, the kind that changes the very fabric of hope into a tapestry of dread. "Knows what?" My voice trembled, struggling to slip through the mounting tension that lay between us. "What do you mean he knows?" "That you're trying to gather strength, allies to face him," Lucas replied, urgency lacing every word. "I overheard him talking with someone from our past, someone who has been watching." A shudder cascaded through my beloved, her grip tightening on my hand as the blood drained from her face. I felt the warmth between us fragment, urgency congealing into cold dread. "We have to leave," I said, instinctively stepping closer as if my presence could shield her from invisible foes. "Leaving won't solve anything," Lucas returned, his voice a mix of desperation and conviction. "If we run, he will win. It's now or never." "Lucas," she began but faltered, doubt flashing through her eyes as fresh memories surged. The fear seeped through the cracks of her bravado, each swell of anxiety knitting shadows around her. "What if it's worse than we think? What if I can't?" "You can," I insisted, searching her terrified gaze for a glimmer of the fire that had burned so vividly in her heart before. "You've been so strong. But we have to act and get ahead of him." Silence enveloped us, thick and suffocating as we weighed our options, knowing that time was slipping like sand between our fingers. It felt like a cruel twist of fate that the pieces of her past would rise to demand a reckoning just as she found a glint of hope in our future. Lucas leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his face a storm of confidence laced with the weight of guilt as he looked between us. "Listen, if he knows we're moving, it's a clear sign he's preparing potentially to strike. We need to prepare ourselves and each other, both for confrontation and within." The maid, who had been silently observing, took a step forward, empathy flooding her expression. "Healing does not happen in isolation. You must bond, share your truths and fears openly. It can fortify you against the shadows you face ahead. Whatever lies between you, all it needs to be resolved now if you are to prevail together." "Together?" I murmured, leaning closer to my beloved, feeling the magnetic pull of hearts intertwined yet fraught with burdens. "What about Lucas?" I stopped short, realizing the intensity of the tangled web we were weaving. "I know it's complicated," Lucas said, his voice softened despite the tension. "But trust me, if I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't have come back." Her gaze flickered between us, caught in a web of tangled emotions, both fear and a flickering bond. Forks in the road, and no clear direction. The softness of her whisper cut like a knife, carving the air around us as possibilities fluttered unsteadily. A reckless hope intertwined our hearts, a rope knit from shared grief and promises yet unspoken. But while they grappled with their intricate web of pasts, I was still left holding my own uncertainty, the tendrils of fear choking every ounce of trust one struggled to cultivate. She began, faltering again, and my heart lurched with indecision. "Tell me," I urged, desperation lacing my voice. "What else are you scared of?" For a heartbeat, she looked like a lighthouse lost in the storm, its beacon dimmed by fears too dark to voice. But in that moment, she steadied, drawing in a breath that seemed to embolden her soul. "What if the next time I face him, I lose you?" "Stop," I whispered, brave enough to hold her gaze. "You won't lose me. Not again." My hands cupped her face, heart racing as I poured every ounce of my conviction into that fleeting second, willing her to see beyond the darkness laced with uncertainty. With a sharp inhale, Lucas' expression shifted, revealing a crucial knot that had wound tighter. "No, she needs to know. You have the right to choose your allies, but first, you have to understand the stakes." "What are you hiding?" I demanded, my heart racing again, reflections of the past echoing around me. "Part of the reason I left," Lucas hesitated, gaze darting as if he could mold the subtle air of the universe to protect his own frail confession. "It was more than fear of a fight. It was about a truth I couldn't bear its tide with who he is." Each word dripped with gravity, the very essence of which reverberated like a whisper from the past. The air thickened, choking the remnants of hope that had yet to settle. "What truth, Lucas? I can't tell you yet, it's not my place. But the bond you share is deeper than you recognize and painfully intertwined with everything you're facing now." "What does that even mean?" My voice cracked, frustration and fear entwining into a choking spiral. The maid, with wisdom echoing from her presence, interjected gently. "Some truths are necessary to navigate the storms that come. But only when the time is right. And the moment that truth is unveiled may change everything." "I don't want to wait," my beloved murmured, her spirit fracturing under the weight of unspoken fears. "We may not have a choice," Lucas replied solemnly, the shadows in the room aligning around him, ushering out any semblance of safety. "It's possible he already knows what we're learning. And the moment it all unravels, it could sever everything we've built." A loud bang echoed from the front of the house, a sudden reminder that outside forces were gathering. It struck like thunder across the sky, reminding us that the storm we had been holding at bay was now lapping at our doorstep. "Please," Lucas urged again, eyes wide with determination, "trust in the love that binds us. Stand together. It's not too late to make the future you want." As the door rattled, I felt the universe shift in a heartbeat, fear and hope intertwining, blazing the path we must tread. In that isolated moment, even if I wanted to shield her from the coming onslaught, I knew we'd face whatever lurked in the shadows together. But no longer before the weight of confusion came crashing again at our doorstep. With a fleeting glance, I caught her eye, a connection of shared resolve intertwining with unwavering fear. "Remember who you are. We'll fight this, together," I whispered, though I could barely hear my own heart pounding beneath the weight of what was to come. And as we stood shoulder to shoulder at the brink of chaos, uncertainties began to swell like the storm clouds gathering over our heads. Would we truly be able to fight back? What revelations lay just beyond that door, ready to thrust us deeper into the shadows? Would we withstand the tempest that loomed on the horizon? The door creaked ominously, the sound rising above the cacophony of our impressions. Crystal shards of ice seemed to crackle in the air as we held our breath, frozen in place, minds racing with possibilities of what who would burst through. "We can't hide," Lucas whispered, glancing at my beloved, whose wide, frightened eyes mirrored the terror reflected in my own. The flickering candlelight cast elongated shadows on the walls, dancing menacingly before us like specters of doubt. As the door swung open, we braced ourselves, hearts hammering like the storm threatening to wash over us. Instead of a figure of dread, the maid stood there, her own expression etched with concern. "I heard something," she said. "It sounded urgent. You need to come." "What's happening?" I asked, forcing my voice to steady. She motioned us quickly inside the dining room. "The conversations in the air are shifting. Something larger is at play. It's not just about him coming for you." The gravity of her words sank in, an unsettling revelation stirring the core of my being. What do you mean? My beloved stepped forward, the flames of courage flickering to life behind those glassy eyes. There is talk of alliances reshaping, shadows growing longer. Some are eager to watch you falter and fail. Her voice lowered, carrying a current of urgency. If they catch the scent of your fear, they will strike. You need to prepare. How? I said, desperation fueling my words. Prepare for what? The storm doesn't simply manifest, it brews. The maid glanced between us, the weight of her insight sinking in deeper. But there are those who will help. You just need to remember that you are not alone here, and if we can't find those allies? Lucas asked grimly, the echo of desperate thoughts surfacing. Then the paths will divide, she replied, voice steady yet weary. You cannot walk this journey alone. Sharing truths will light the way. As we stood there, a silence crept back, pressing against us until I felt words clawing at my insides. I don't know how to begin, I said, feeling the vulnerability creep in, thickening the air around us. Sometimes it is enough to say what weighs on your heart. The maid invited, a gentle presence amidst the turmoil. And sometimes, it's enough just to listen. I turned to my beloved, her eyes swirling with untold emotions. I know there's more you've kept from me, I admitted, feeling the truth that had long been a fracture between us vying for acknowledgement. What holds you back? Her shoulders trembled, a soft quiver emerging as she bit her lip, struggling against the flood of feelings that threatened to spill. What if revealing these truths exposes me to even more pain? What if we fracture? We might fracture, Lucas responded softly. But hiding from darkness never chased it away. It gave it more power. Tension thickened like fog, wrapping in around us. As the maid's gaze darted to the window, her face morphed, reflecting something sharp and unyielding. There is so much more at stake than just what you've come to understand with each other. What do you mean? I pressed. A flicker of light caught her gaze, and she leaned in closer. I can show you what you cannot see. Her voice dropped to a whisper, laced with sincerity. But it won't be without cost. To unveil the truth can open old wounds, and you may not be ready for what lies ahead. What do you know? My beloved asked, determination pushing through the veil of fear she wore. There's a reason why he wants you, the maid explained. Beyond control, it's about connect. I own a lineage that ties your destinies together in ways even you don't yet understand. And you think you'll be safe by knowing? I swallowed hard, breathless at the gravity of our circumstances. It's not about safety, the maid said. It's about power, the kind born from knowledge. In that moment, realizations unfurled like roots taking soil, twining around the hearts present in the room. But even as we wrestled with unflinching purpose, doubt loomed, a specter lurking in the backdrop. I was beginning to feel some light ahead, my beloved murmured, glancing back at me. But if all this is true, what if it damages us? Then we face it together, I replied, forcing strength into my voice. But it's your truth that matters most. Whatever your fears, share them with us. There's light in the honesty. I didn't notice as Lucas shifted slightly, the colors of his emotions swirling. Maybe with your truths, we can unveil his. But as my beloved opened her mouth, ready to spill the story I knew she held tight, the door burst open again. Shadows spilled into the room, figures all too familiar stepping forth from the dark, their presence suffocating. Looks like we caught you at an interesting moment, a voice taunted, cool and relentless, a voice I had long feared. My heart sank, ice freezing my veins. The air stilled, and the shadows flickered, threatening to engulf our newfound courage. This is where it all begins, a figure stepped forward, smirking, and I felt the walls around us tremble. Prepare yourselves, another voice echoed, deep and resonant. The truth has merely set the stage, and it's about time we unravel the webs you've spun. The maid's eyes darted to us, urgency reignited. Stick together. Don't let them divide you. As panic surged through me, the realization shattered. We were not just fighting for survival, we were at the precipice of becoming entirely unbound. Desperation threatened to drown our hopes, with trepidation hanging like a tempest in the air. Revelations loomed dark and wild around us like the storm clouds that promised chaos. Would we bend to the darkness ahead? What secrets would tumble out in the relentless pursuit of the truth, and would we be ready for what lay beyond that? The shadows danced closer, sinister energy pooling in the corners of the room. Confusion clung to the air, swirling with the scent of fear and uncertainty. I felt my beloved's hand gripping mine, a fragile lifeline amid the encroaching darkness. The maid's urgent gaze pierced through the chaos. "Remember what I said, truths will light your way," she urged, her voice barely a whisper now, almost lost beneath the taunts of those who had cornered us. "We can't let them separate us," Lucas cried, his voice cracking under the strain. I could see his eyes darting, calculating options, desperation clawing at his resolve. "No more running," I said, though confidence felt thin and fraying. Each word carried the weight of every moment I had hesitated to fully embrace the stakes. "No more hiding. We're stronger together." A tense silence followed, the kind that felt electric, buzzing with possibility. But it shattered quickly as the figures before us advanced, their intentions clouded yet clear. They meant to disrupt what fragile understanding we had begun to build. "That's adorable," one of them sneered, slick lips curling into a malicious grin, revealing a predatory nature that dripped confidence and malice. "You think unity will save you? Such naive hope." I fought against the rising tide of despair. "Hope is all we have. It's more powerful than you know." My voice rose above theirs, defiance igniting a flicker of resolve deep within me. "Such conviction," the figure mocked, yet there was a glint of something fear masking as disdain. "But you're still blind to everything lurking in the dark." With surprising speed, the maid stepped between us and them, an unexpected bastion against the tide of dread. "Enough," she commanded, her voice now steel. "You may think shadows are your allies, but they will betray you in the end. Darkness devours those who embrace it without understanding." "That's rich coming from a servant," the smirking figure spat back. But under the words, I sensed unease, just as the maid had hinted there might be. But unease would not drive them away, it would only fan the flames of their aggression. "Enough talk." Another shadow growled, their impatience palpable. "We came for results, not riddles." The room vibrated with impending confrontation. The shadows loomed, and it felt as if every heartbeat echoed through the silence, a drumroll heralding calamity. My heart sank, fear tangling with determination. "Tell me what you want," I uttered, surprised at how steady my voice remained. "If you have business with us, let's make it plain." The air shifted, a palpable tension spilling between us. "Business?" the sneering figure rasped. "You, dear, carry something far more significant than mere business: legacy, destiny, a mark that ties you to us." Silence fell again, the weight of his words sinking in like lead. My mind raced, connections forming just out of reach. My beloved's hand felt warm in mine, grounding me. "What do you mean?" she demanded, lifting her chin in defiance. "Do you truly not know?" The smirk widened. "You are kissed by fate, a pawn in a game far larger than the three of you can comprehend. We are merely here to collect what is owed." "What is owed?" Lucas interjected, growing desperate. "We owe you nothing, but that's where you're wrong." The figure stepped closer, voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. "You owe us your existence." The shadows shifted, and suddenly, something cold gripped my heart, a revelation that echoed through me. "What do you know of my family?" I asked, teeth clenched against the rising panic. "What ties us?" "Everything," he said, a certain pride threading through his malice. "Your lineage is wrapped tightly around our own. You are far more than you seem, in ways you cannot yet understand." A ripple of shock flowed through the room, and as silence draped itself over us like a heavy shroud, I felt the walls closing in, the air weighed down with unsaid truths. I could see my beloved's eyes widen with realization and fear. "What do you mean, lineage?" Lucas pressed, but the shadows shifted again, heightening the tension. "Well, share those secrets at the right moment, sweet child. Right now, you must decide. Will you stay here in the safety of your ignorance, or will you venture forth into the truth that lies just beyond your grasp?" The question hung in the air, and suddenly, time felt suspended, every second stretching like elastic, ready to snap. The maid's eyes darted between us, imploring, as if she understood the depths of choice better than any of us. I wished I could glean the murky truth pulling at the edges of our fate, but then another figure swept next to the taunting one, this new presence glimmering with an unexpected warmth, contrasting starkly with the darkness surrounding us. "This I see how it needs to happen," she spoke softly, a glimmer of caution in her tone. "You're scared, But unity, finding your strength in vulnerability, might just be your true salvation. Who are you? I gasped, taken aback by her gentleness amid the chaos. A friend, she said, and I could sense sincerity hanging in her eyes, an olive branch amidst the storm. Yet, the shadows stirred anxiously around her, and I could feel caution threading through the maid as well. Help us, she urged softly, uncertainty woven into her words. Help you? The initial figure chuckled darkly. And why would we do that? The friend lifted her chin, fierce determination shining through. Because if destiny intertwines us, breaking this cycle of darkness could free all of us. Hold on to your truths. It's time to decide what kind of legacy you want to leave. My brain spun, possibilities colliding like crashing waves. The essence of my past, my family's secrets, and the dire choices of my future twisted together. But as new fear darted through me, another thought slipped in, quiet yet burgeoning, the hope that perhaps another way existed, tangled amid the shadows and intrigue. Would I be brave enough to step forward and light a path through this impending conflict? The answer hung tantalizingly on the edge of my consciousness, as the shadows closed in like hungry flames. In that moment of uncertainty, the abyss stared back, as I stood on the cusp of darkness or discovery, the storm threatening to break free. It's been weeks since that day the shadows first invaded our home, the day everything began to spiral into chaos. The air in the house felt electric, charged with unspoken truths and lingering fears, as we wrestled with the knowledge that those who had come to disrupt our lives were more than mere threats. They were links to a past that demanded reckoning. The maid's determination had become a guiding light, a steady presence among the unraveling threads of our lives. Yet with every fleeting moment, the stakes grew higher, and with them, the uncertainty deepened. Would our united front hold against the encroaching darkness that sought to overwhelm us? I refused to let you define my destiny, my beloved stated fiercely one evening, her voice slicing through the tension as we stood confronting the shadows. I had come to admire the tenacity she had drawn upon, a testament to the strength she had been desperate to reclaim. Glancing at the maid for support, I could tell she echoed those sentiments, her resolve building like a tide ready to break. Then let's face this together, I urged, clutching her hand, feeling the warmth of her spirit seep into the cracks of my own fears. I never wanted to seem deterred, but the shadows loomed over us, whispering unsettling truths that made my heart race with trepidation. Days morphed gloriously into an unrelenting blur of preparation, where allies began aligning themselves like stars born from darkness, each coming with their own burdens and scripts of pain, yet all united with the common desire to overthrow the looming malevolence. With every gathering, I could feel my beloved's spirit rising, her laughter returning like a phoenix balancing on wings of hope. But trust was fragile, it had to be earned, and it was a journey fraught with uncertainty. Lucas' past haunted the present, and I felt torn between wanting to protect her from any further hurt beyond what had already unfolded and embracing the tensions that connected us. Days turned into heated discussions filled with determined stakes. One evening found us gathered tightly in a circle of candlelight in our makeshift war room. The atmosphere pulsed with readiness and quiet dread, but mostly with an ember-like fire igniting our spirits. We need to know what we're up against, Lucas said, pacing nervously at the center, his hand gripping the edges of the table as if trying to cling to a solid truth buried amid chaos. We need clarity. Clarity comes with courage, the maid said softly, her eyes locking onto my beloved's. No more veils. No more hiding. Tell us, my beloved affirmed, head lifted with a bravery I had almost forgotten existed. We need to uncover all of this for ourselves. Nods and murmurs of agreement filled our small circle, each voice an echo reverberating against the walls that had held our fears captive for too long. And then the maid drew a breath, her expression sobering. The room fell silent as she prepared to unveil the story we had been evading, the truth binding every heart and connecting each of us in ways we had not yet grasped. Your past is a tapestry woven with love and loss, she began, voice steady yet imbued with an ethereal sadness. It tethers you to a lineage, one that has endured turmoil. Our adversary wields knowledge, inherited like a shadow hovering over your shoulders. A chill traveled through the room, the weight of her words anchoring us in solemnity. What knowledge? I dared to ask, my heart racing. Your parents were caught in a web of secrets, ones which linked them to a powerful lineage, a realm that thrives on fear and control. A legacy you represent, she explained, her intensity unwavering. The words landed like heavy stones in a still pond. I glanced at my beloved beside me, her expression fierce yet hollow, uncertainty flickering like a dying ember. "And you think he'll inherit this?" she whispered, a cocktail of dread and disbelief coloring her voice. "No," the maid replied, urgency underscoring her tone. "You represent a choice between the light and the darker chance to break free. Then we can stand against them," Lucas interjected, his voice lifting like the first light of dawn. "This isn't a path we need to walk alone, we can change the narrative." And in that moment, before our eyes, an inexplicable ripple spread among us, forged from unity and shared determination. Together, we could be the change that illuminated the shadows threatening to eclipse us all. As the preparations coalesced into a powerful and determined force, I felt the tides shifting. The darkness no longer felt like an inevitable storm, overshadowing our resolve. The roots of bravery intertwined with our past began to forge a new present, one where presence mattered more than the whispers of threats in the night. Days blurred into nights, each tick of the clock counting down toward pivotal confrontation. The growing tide of confidence instilled hope amidst anxious anticipation. Every early morning brought with it the calls of our allies, growing stronger, as unified fronts stood ready against the encroaching darkness. Yet, a whisper lingered, a thread of fear through every gathering and every whispered promise. Could we face what had haunted my beloved, the shadows that beckoned her back into despair? As we steeled ourselves for the promise of confrontation, lingering doubts snaked like vines around my heart. It was on the cusp of battle, the night before our foremost encounter, when everything changed in our safe haven. As I reached for my beloved beneath the dim glow of candles, her expression flickered, a moment suspended in time. "I've been thinking," she began, hesitance lining her features. Both determination and vulnerability knitted together, arrayed against the impending storm. "What if we don't come out of this?" A pang shot through me. The question threatened to unravel the hopeful threads we had woven together. "You have to believe we will. Find your strength in our unity. I have to tell you something." Her voice trembled, holding strength yet laced with fear. "What they are after, it's not just about power. It's deeper than Thata linked to us. My ancestors. It's a game they want to win, a legacy intertwined, and I fear." As she voiced her tremors like a plea into the night, the door burst open with a clamorous force akin to thunder echoing in the distance. A figure stood at the threshold, the tension palpable, every unanticipated moment transforming into a fracture within our anticipated standoff. "Tonight marks the beginning of the end," he declared, his voice a graveled whisper tinged with authority. The unmistakable chill seized my thoughts, a spiral of dread as his eyes gleamed, dark and merciless. "You've lingered far too close." But before he could utter another word, the maid stepped resolutely into the path of shadows, her presence ablaze with courage. "You will not take her again. We will fight, and we will win." Yet even her defiance resonated with an underlying tremor, etched with the weight of what was to come. As he advanced, fear curled tighter around my heart, threatening to bury the hope that had breathed life back into our embattled spirits. But bracing against the spiral of torment cascading around us, I felt something shift within, invigorating and resolute, a flame igniting amid the darkness. "Together," I whispered, lightly squeezing my beloved's hand, allowing the warmth between us to buoy our spirits. "No matter what happens, we remain united." And suddenly, in that moment, everything distilled to clarity. I could see the ripple effect emanating from my beloved shadows fled as our urgency spilled over into a radiant strength. Then, a shared determination ignited like wildfire among our allies, encroaching the barrier of darkness with an intensity that demanded action. The shadows trembled, quaking beneath the resolve threading together our hearts. "Let this be the reckoning," I declared, feeling the chorus of collective wills surge. "We will show you what it means to fight for hope." In that harmonious declaration, a veil lifted, emboldening us for the challenge ahead. And as the figures around us began to swirl with renewed determination, I could feel the echo of who we might become resonated with every heartbeat. This battle would be fought not just for us, but for the legacy of hope we sought to illuminate. And as we prepared to confront the storm raging beyond our walls, we carried with us the promise of strength and unity that had flourished from the depths of heartache. Whatever lay ahead together, we would embrace the possibility of triumph, lighting a path forward, unwavering against the shadows as the clash of destinies drew ever nearer. I took one last look at my beloved, her gaze fierce and unwavering, a reflection of everything I had ever believed in. With a shared breath, we stepped forward into the shadows, prepared to pave our way toward the dawn. And in that pivotal moment of unity against uncertainty, I knew, our legacy would not be written by the shadows that sought to consume us, but by the radiant light of hope we chiseled with every brave step we chose to take. In that embrace of courage, we found not just a battle to fight, but the promise of love that could inspire a future bright enough to shatter any darkness. And I realized then, with hope blossoming within every step we forged as we faced the unknown, perhaps love could indeed transcend all odds, even against the shadows lurking in our past. My heart is forever bound to you, I declared into the night as the dawn broke, illuminating the way ahead, with courage enough to illuminate anything. And for the first time in a long while, the promise of love against all odds felt not just possible, but imminent. Together, she echoed, as we stepped into the dawn, ready to embrace whatever awaited us. And with every uncertain step forward, we wove the tapestry of our legacy anew.